Hey there guys, what's going on? So we've gotten off to what you might call sort of a slow start here in March. Admittedly, we're still in that period of time where the winter pounds and winter snow are still slowly melting away in some cases and not in others, and teasing us with the notion of spring, and energy levels are not exactly what you'd call high so far. But thankfully, the news and the tea leaves presented before us are showing us a great deal of optimism and a real reason to get moving and shaking in 2015. This year alone has already shown us a preview window into the return of old favorites for some, the consistent follow-ups of others, or inconsistent as the unfortunate case may be, and the early glimmering spark of freshman debuts for more new voices trying to strive to get heard out there. In the digital internet age, that task is in many ways easier to accomplish, but in just as many other ways still remains a rather exotic mystery. We may have invented prettier fire, but the sticks are still just as difficult to rub together. In today's installment, we have one of those new voices, who recently started to make waves through online media and the very notion that the newest, pretty lo-fi masterpiece could soon be coming up the pipeline into our eagerly awaiting ears. That has gradually started to translate over into other media, as this artist recently made an appearance on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, while the print stories on this individual are gradually starting to get longer and are containing more paragraphs. And while I don't see a meteoric rise equivalent to how the Alabama Shakes broke out of obscurity, I do think we're on the very cusp of seeing a very talented singer-songwriter open up his wings and take flight. Today we have Canadian-born Tobias Jesso Jr. and his upcoming March 17th release of Goon. Co-produced by former Girls bassist J.R. White, Black Keys drummer Patrick Carney, and Ariel Rechtshaid, that is a lot of co-producers, this low-key, retro-inspired venture never sounds chopped up or split up by the songs each producing mind worked on. Rather, it carries Jesso's overarching style of broken-hearted piano man, barroom singer-songwriter, and the type of musician who carries so many influences on his sleeve that by the time you hear all the comparisons and make them, the end result is one that's simply and purely Jesso's own. But we'll get into that more with this review, so let us begin, shall we? To initially hear the music of the only 29-year-old Jesso on opening track Can't Stop Thinking About You is to quickly think you're hearing the music of someone much older, with a record on the shelf that's still dusty with all the decades done and taken place since its inception in the mid-70s. Although honestly, Tobias sounds like someone who harkens from many different musical directions all at once. On one hand, he feels like a perfect complement to one of those Brill-building era songwriters doing creative battle for the next hit on Carole King's piano, while on the other he can be akin to the plaintive prowess of a John Lennon or Harry Nilsson, while still sounding freshly contemporary with this fragile, Jim James-esque lilt to his vocals. And speaking of Lennon, he comes the most to mind, especially with Jesso's knack for recording with a bit of roughness hanging around the edges, while also being vaguely reminiscent of Danielle Johnston. The less than pristine quality of songs like Without You and Hollywood bring to mind Lennon's later home and studio recordings that had more than their share of fuzz, but still allowed their subjects of love, beauty, and sometimes bitterness to shine on center stage. Plus, For You has a bit of that airy, string-lofted Britpop that Lennon and a certain Fab Four probably would have taken quite a shine to as well, especially that, that McCartney fella. But all those comparisons to potential influences aside, what I really enjoy about Tobias Jesso Jr. in this record is that the subjects really are so rough around the edges like that. I know that simple can sometimes be thought of as it's a bad word and a bad thing, especially in a musical landscape where complexity, double meaning, and the concept of higher art is so often sought after and pushed higher and higher and higher and higher, to the point that it's pretty much done to death. But listening to Jesso's work is like listening to the basic palette of one's own natural human emotions, ranging from today's love and heartbreak to the worn-out old suitcase in the attic filled with our delicately porcelain memories. Goon looks back as much as it does forward, and does so with great care, cementing meaning to each and every single word. And for Jesso, he not only really approaches those subjects with great authenticity, but judging by the stories done on him in the media, that wasn't really a long dig down the creative well to get to. Sometimes it's with very Nielsen or Randy Newman-esque humor, as with Crocodile Tears. With others, it's with late dark end of the bar sadness, as with Can't Stop Thinking About You or Bad Words. And in others, it's relaying the very real struggles with a life and a career going nowhere, as with Hollywood. Tobias Jesso Jr. certainly looks to be on a very big impending upswing with his upcoming debut, but it was certainly no easy road to achieve that dream, and Goon is ultimately lifted by the weight of what it can sometimes take to make that dream pay off. My favorites from this one are a bunch of the aforementioned, but certainly have to include Hollywood, Without You, which probably is my top pick, Bad Words, Can't Stop Thinking About You, and of course, the magnificent, melodic, handful of heartbreak upswings of How Could You Babe. Tobias Jesso Jr. has delivered an absolute masterstroke of an album with Goon, one that I think ultimately heals as much as it may hurt, and as I hinted at in the beginning of the video, takes this barrel full of influences, mixes them all together in a washing machine, and results in something that's entirely Jesso's own. It's one of those albums that grows on the listener, that's perfect for chilling out next to late at night and absorbing the real and honest purity of its emotion. It couldn't have happened to a talent who deserved it more, and for all that, I absolutely have to give Tobias Jesso Jr. and Goon a 9 out of 10. But that's it, and that is all for me here, guys, with my review of Tobias Jesso Jr. and his upcoming album, Goon. You can officially get this in stores and record shops and places everywhere coming up on March 17th. Go and support your local record shops. You can go and get it from your Amazon dealer. You can get it from Matador Distribution, as I did. You can get it through True Panther Sounds, which is Jesso's record label, and just anywhere else you can think of. Digitally on iTunes, all of that stuff under the sun. Definitely go out and support this young, burgeoning singer-songwriter in his excellently skilled debut. So that is it. That is all for me here with this review. You guys, I hope you enjoyed this, so stick around and stay tuned for more excellent coverage coming your way very soon.